let's start with the first topic in this video series, which is gonna be sensing the moment. So what does this mean? What do I mean when I say sensing the moment? Right? How to sense the moment in a practical game, right? And this is not an easy question to answer, because it's just, there isn't there is no clear-cut way to answer it. One way to answer it is to realize when your opponent's pieces, standing on the wrong squares, for example, and when you get that sensation of, okay, there has to be something here. And so during a practical game, okay, let's talk about that. What happens in a practical game, right? Because in a practical game, nobody will say, hey, you should look for a move here, right? There is no coach behind you. There is no one behind you. I'm not going to be behind you saying, oh, hey, this is the moment. It doesn't really work that way. So you have to figure out yourself. And so what I recommend you, and what I'm gonna be talking about in this episode, let's say, is when you know, or when you feel like there is something in the air, then you should always look for something. How do you know when something in the air? Once again, it's not an easy question to answer, but of course, first off, of course, going over this recording and training technical exercises, and just going over some of these ideas and games over and over again. And of course, you might just improve in this portion. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a couple of games where one player just senses the moment and grabs the opportunity immediately and just grabs the initiative, and boom, the game finishes very, very quickly. Okay, so the first game is gonna be between Paul against Botvinnik. Obviously, very, very, very strong players. The game started out with c4. I'm gonna flip the board because we are looking at this from Black's perspective. So c4 happened, and knight f6, d4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. So we are looking at the Nimzo-Indian variation, of course. Many lines here with queen c2, f3, e3, knight f3, all kinds of lines, bishop g5s, of course, even g3. See, it's a very, very complex line. White decided to play one of the crowd favorites, which is queen c2. This is a queen c2 Nimzo-Indian. d5. Okay, so Black has many responses other than d5. So of course Black can play c5. Castle is a very popular move nowadays, and for many years now. And of course d5. These are the top three moves, I guess. So d5, takes, and now bishop g5. This is still theory. This is still, book moves. So let's just continue with the game. So h6. So this is kind of the first critical moment in the game when it comes to opening theory. You can play h6, and you can start immediately with c5. So the reasoning behind c5 is I want to break up the center as fast as possible, and I don't want to allow White to take here on f6. I mean, you can still take on f6 after c5, but it's just not going to be the same. So here after h6, white decided to play bishop h4, which is a completely normal move, and it's a fine move. It just allows white to take on f6. Is it a good line? It's an okay line. I don't think there is an advantage for white nor for black, but it's more of a solid opening. But white was ready for a fight, and bishop h4 happened. Now c5. Okay, so obviously this game was played back in 1941. So nowadays in 2021, obviously we know that this move that Keres is playing, long castle, was a mistake, but back in the day it was not super obvious. Okay, so bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, and now g5. Interesting move to kind of weaken. It weakens the pawn structure, the position in front of the king. So it's a little weird, but you'll see many moves like this throughout the whole course. The reasoning is just be active. Okay, it's all about being active, being forceful, grabbing the initiative, putting pressure on the opponent all day, every day, every single move, or at least that's our goal. Okay, bishop g3, pawn takes, queen takes, and of course another tempo. Okay, what happened in the game so far? Black basically gave up the strategic side of the game, right? Because the pawn structure is not that great. But of course, black just gained crucial tempos, and so black is in a big lead in development. And actually, it's funny enough, because even though white has castled on the queen side, white's king is actually a lot weaker than black's king in the center, and we're gonna see why. And the main reason is that the rook can come into play with rook c8 and just create an enormous amount of pressure on the c file. So queen a4, and now a good move happened. If you saw my previous video course, then you know that I like to stop a little bit and of course give you some time to figure out what to do. So this is a critical moment in the position where you can play a very strong move. So if you feel like, stop the video and just think a little bit and try to find the strongest continuation here. So if you know or if you remember what I said earlier about the king, right? So the king here on the queen side is rather weak, because it can face many issues on the c file, but if it manages to escape to b1 and to a1, then it would be actually okay. So black plays it very in a very clever way and plays bishop f5. Reasoning just completely stops king b1. Okay, so he doesn't allow king b1, and basically the king is stuck here on c1, and that is gonna be a big advantage for black. e3, of course, white tries to finish development and maybe prepare bishop d3 in order to neutralize this very annoying active attacking bishop here on f5. And now rook c8. of course, black is continuing with the plan. Obviously, wanna create a big threat, a big attack on the c file against the king with all sorts of discovered attack. Of course, we can't really jump away with our knight because it is pinned at the moment, but still it is a threat later on. So bishop d3 happened. Once again, the reasoning is that because the knight on c6 can't really move, now he just he tries to take advantage of it. So and you know, tries to, as I said, neutralize an attacking piece. So queen d7, king b1. Now it looks like white manages to go away, but because of the lack of development, white is going to be in worlds of trouble. Okay, takes, and now of course queen f5. Queen f5. Now, as you can see, the attack on d3 is very forcing. And of course, the biggest problem in white's position is not just the king, right? The king is weak on b1, that's for sure, but also, you know, still the lack of development is so visible. It is one of, if not the biggest problem in white's camp. Okay, so, and as you guys can see, black is doing a great job in terms of, you know, putting pressure on the opponent. Okay, if we're talking about, you know, if we're talking about initiative and we're trying to approach it in a practical way, right? My goal is, even though initiative it's a broad idea, or it's like an idea that not that easy to grasp, I'm still trying to give you some practical ideas, practical tips of how to, you know, be active and just keep the initiative going. And one idea is to always keep your opponent busy, right? Just keep putting pressure, move after move, move after move. So the rook is hanging on d3. White has to protect it, right? And, you know, the problem with protecting the rook for white is that white doesn't have a chance for at least for another move to finish development with the knight and with the other rook in the corner. So he was like, okay, I don't want to do it, right? I don't even have a good way to actually protect the rook, and that's like one issue, right? Because let's say I go back to d1. What happens if I go back to d1? I can just simply play knight b4, and now the rook is just simply overloaded. The pin on this diagonal, you know, it's just very bad, and basically you just lost your rook. So that's an issue. Same thing happens after queen c2. Because now knight b4 is a fork, and you can't take my rook on c8 because the queen protects it, okay, backwards. So white was like, okay, this is my chance, or it wasn't really a chance, but this is one opportunity to get the initiative back, or turn things around a little bit, and he decided to continue it with e4. Okay, knight takes c4. Obviously, I'm not trading queens. The queen right now in my position is a big asset. I don't want to trade off this important piece. Keep the initiative going. Keep the position alive. Bring another piece into the attack. The knight from f6 now becomes very strong. King a1 finally manages to go away from this pin, from this diagonal. Of course, white had to face some annoying threats with a knight c5, for example, And yeah, so once again, White didn't have a free move where he was able to continue with the development or finish with the development. So castle, putting the castle away here, it's just totally safe to castle, right? You can't really take advantage of this weak pawn structure. Your pieces are not even developed. Black is super comfortable to castle now, and as you can see, by being active, by being forceful, by grabbing the initiative, Black basically just ended up with good piece control and just, you know, material advantage, right? I do have a pawn advantage on d5. So rook d1 happened. What happens? So he went back. He moved away from the pin, from the discovered attack. What happens if I play knight e2? Because it would be logical to now finally to just you know, finish development, but after knight c5 the game is pretty much over. Okay, so that's why castle was a smart move to make, because he just avoids all kinds of checks, either from rook e3 or with a queen, and now the threat is just unbearable, right? So rook d1 happened, but now b5. Once again, beautiful move, beautiful move. Why is that? Why is that? Because Black's position is fantastic. Okay, Black's position is very good, but he doesn't want to, you know, slow down. He doesn't want the opponent to have a move or two moves where he can relax. Okay, he has the opportunity now. He has awesome pieces. White has horrible piece development. His king is weak. His back rank is weak. So he takes advantage of it. Another good example, the second one basically in the game, where just basically black sends the opportunity, sends the moment. Okay, hey, this is another good time to increase the pressure. Why? Because if let's say White just manages to play something like knight f3, brings the rook into the game, and somehow stitches the position together, it's actually okay. Sure, you still got to deal with the pawn deficit, but still, it's going to be a different game. But after b5, now it's really bad. Why? Because once again, all kinds of threats, keeping the initiative alive, keeping the activity alive. In the game, White decided to take. There was no real difference, because let's say if I go back here, I can still play knight d4. And as I mentioned, you know, the back rank is really weak, right? Now the rook on the c file is going to be crazy. You can't really take. If you take here, I can just simply give you a checkmate, and that's game. That looks awesome. And otherwise, I'm just threatening you with knight c2 with a nice fork. And queen is going to be in danger. So he decided to take on b5, but no surprise here. Black continued with knight d4, another tempo, right? Not slowing down, very smart. Queen d3, and now the game is going to be over in two moves, because after knight c2, king b1, knight b4, the game is over. Why is that? Because the discovered attack is gonna be GG, right? Because you have to move your queen now away from this diagonal. So let's say I'm gonna attack your queen, for example. Offering an exchange would be great for White, but of course we are not trading here. We can give a discovered attack, discovered check actually, with a double check, right, with knight d2 and knight d3. So both moves are completely winning, and that is pretty much game. Okay, and by the way, it's actually pretty nice. This is actually going to be a checkmate. You can even be fancier and sacrifice even your queen if you want to, but that's really just the icing on the cake. So beautiful game, a very nice example by Botvinnik. Yeah, he sensed the moment in the game at least 2 times, and didn't allow the opponent to relax or improve the position. And as you can see, basically in the final position, right? The pieces are still in their original place, so that is pretty bad. Okay, awesome. So let's move on to the next game. Let's go. So this is gonna be a game from Fischer. Okay, so this game was played by a young Fischer. Okay, so he was really young here. He was around 16 years old, and but he plays a fantastic games when he plays a fantastic game when it comes to initiative and sensing the moment and just realizing, hey, there might just be something here. I know there is something in the air here. Let's check out that moment. So it was a Grunfeld opening from a different move order. So the usual the classical way of doing Grunfeld is d4, knight f6, c4, g6. But this is a move order from the English opening, but that's okay. Of course, d4. The only issue, let's say issue, if you're actually going for the Grunfeld as black, you gotta make sure that you play d5 as almost fast as possible after knight f6 and g6, because if not, for example, against this setup, you can't really play this setup if you want to play Grunfeld, because white can play something like e4, and now what happens is that white transposes into either a King's Indian or a Maroczy system or Maroczy setup. Then it's not gonna, white is not going to allow d5 to happen. But that's a risk that Fischer was willing to take. Of course, he was very, very good at King's Indian structure, so he was okay with allowing e4. And white decided to play d4 castle. Still e4 would be King's Indian. White decided to play bishop f4, and now d5. Okay, so black decided to play the Grunfeld eventually. Okay, queen b3. This is obviously a sideline for white. Okay line. It's just obviously not the most popular one. So takes, and now the pawn was hanging on c7, so black decided to protect it by moving the pawn. Okay, so e4. It's a clever move to make, right? Black allows you to occupy the center. Why not capture it? Why not occupy it? Sure, it makes a lot of sense. Knight b d7 happened, just developing. Of course, black could have won a tempo here with bishop b6. That, of course, would have been a relatively completely different game. So he decided to play knight b d7. It's still a good move, right? Because I'm actually threatening you with knight b6, winning a tempo. That makes sense. Rook d1, and now knight b6. Okay, winning the tempo. That makes a lot of sense. Queen c5. Okay, so bishop g4, finishing the development. Fischer is playing by the book, right? Basically, or follows the principles, and his play is logical, easy to follow, easy to understand. It's something that we should always follow, even if we know the opening. We are definitely aiming for this, not this setup, but this kind of a play, right? Just castle, if we can occupy the center, bring out all of our pieces. So that's something that we always want to do. So bishop g4 and now bishop g5, and this was basically the mistake that allowed Fischer to be, let's say, creative and active and grab the initiative and grab the opportunity. Okay, so why did Fischer feel like there is a chance here? Why did he think that, okay, there might just be something in the air, hanging in the air, right? He just sensed the moment. Why? The reasoning is very easy, actually. In general, a bad idea to play with the same piece twice, right? Especially in the early phase of the opening. So now at least this is like one, for example, one idea or one tip that you can look out for. If your opponent does something iffy with the pieces with way too many times, then that might be your calling. Okay, another idea, right? The king is still in the center, the rook is still in the corner, the bishop's still on f1. So white is lacking development. Of course, white has the center, but he pays the price for it. Okay, he definitely pays the price for it. And of course, playing bishop g5 was just another little like spark, basically, that basically started the fire. So this is a difficult position, a crucial position. Pause the video, think about the move. It's gonna be a crazy one. Knight a4. This is the move that he played, and I just remembered, actually, I think earlier or before this game I mentioned that Fischer was 16, and now I just remembered that Fischer was actually around 13 at this point. Okay, when he played this game he was around 13 years old, and finding this move at 13, it's absolutely awesome. So of course he was a very talented guy, so his intuition was very developed, obviously, early on, and of course, you know, I can't tell you if how good you are, how talented you are, but as I said, by analyzing these games and by just learning about these tips, these ideas, might just improve your intuition as well. So knight a4, beautiful move. White couldn't really take on a4. It is easy to see that after knight a4, black can just simply take on e4, and now bishop e7, and just simply knight c5, bishop d8, and knight a4, and the position is horrible for white. The pawn structure is in ruins. The d4 pawn is an isolated pawn. That's bad. b2 pawn is hanging. The knight on f3 is under attack, and black is threatening to create an even worse pawn structure. The bishop is hanging. The king is still in the center. The pieces here are still in its original squares. Looking real bad. So he couldn't really take, so he decided to go back to a3, and now takes, b takes, and now knight a4. Once again, I would say almost a crazy move, right? Because it's just, once again, it looks like an exchange sacrifice. Is it really? And yes and no, But the most important thing is that blacks keep the initiative, right? Black keeps the initiative and keeps going, keeps the position alive, doesn't allow white to finish development and to castle and just consolidate the position. And so same idea here in this game, just like what happened in the Botvinnik game. No rest, no time to relax for white, 94, right? And yes, sacrificing an exchange, is it a lot? Can be. But if your evaluation in this position is correct, you can see that you get so much back in return that it's definitely worth it. So bishop e7, now queen b6, moving away. So white decided actually to not take on f8, which was actually clever. If white takes on f8, I can just simply take back, and after queen b3, I take on c3, and that is a big problem. Why? Because if you take here, I get to pin your queen and actually win your queen. And after takes, now the rook is hanging, the pawn is hanging, the pieces are not developed, your king is still in the center. Yes, I am a exchange down. Does it matter? No, the game is pretty much over because I am just overwhelming my opponent with the activity of my position. So that is crazy. White decided to not take, actually decided to continue with the development. That's a smart decision. Now knight c3. Still, the trick works. Why? First off, one of the main reasons, right? I mentioned earlier, the king is still in the center, so white gets punished for it. What if I take here? What if I take on c3? I can play just simply rook e8. Pin the bishop and just attack it one more time with this, or even queen c7, and with the bishop pair with material advantage, white is just losing. Black is in a big advantage. So bishop c5, but this was the move that you know Fischer had to see. Okay, Fischer had to see, because it's a beautiful in-between move by white. So, and if you just move away with your queen, I can just simply take your knight on c3. So he gave a check. That is smart, right? Just asking the king, hey, where are you gonna go? If you're still in the center, you might just receive some questions about, hey, what you're gonna do. So king f1, and this is the trick, or the tactical motive that Fischer saw. Once again, pause the video. Crazy move. Think about it. I hope you found it. I do hope you find it, because this is one hell of a move. Bishop e6. Yes, exactly. Queen sacrifice. But there is one principle that worth knowing when it comes to calculation, and when it comes to sacrificing, for example, a piece. And just like in this game, okay, takes, if you're going for a risky line, it can be, for example, sacrifices. It's always good to have like a sort of like a getaway plan, okay, like a plan B, where I can go for a super safe line, and for example like a draw or a repetition of moves, and I can still get away with the game without losing the game, right? And this is what Black did. So of course, if the original plan doesn't work, I can still go for the draw. And so gave a check. So here I always have a perpetual check, right? So knight f4, knight e2, and just go back and forth. But black had another option. Knight takes d4, takes, okay, he won a pawn, but still the principle works. And now knight c3. Okay, knight c3, king g1, and now takes on b6, because what happened? So the queen is hanging from the rook is hanging from the knight, or by the knight. And what's the valuation? The material is a rook and the bishop and 2 pawns for the queen. Is it worth it? I would say so, yes. But if we add this king and this rook into the occasion, that it's just worth even more. Okay, so the game still continued, but this was basically the gist of it. This is 2 very, very important moments in the game, when Fischer played knight a4, when white played bishop g5, and the other move was actually there were 3 points, 3 moments. And the second one was when black played knight takes e4, sacrificing the exchange, and of course the third one was this queen sacrifice. Beautiful, beautiful games. Of course, I can talk about it a lot more, but I wanna go over some tips for you, and so you can understand this topic a little better. So the first one is, don't be creative when you are underdeveloped and your king is in the center, right? That makes sense, right? You don't do any funny stuff then, okay? Just finish development, occupy the center, castle away, put your king to safety, and then you can be creative and start playing, more in of an active manner. Okay, and the second one, tempo moves, centralizing pieces are the first you should always examine. Okay, I always try to give you tips after each unit, but yeah, that was the first one, sensing the moment. Let's move on to the next one.